10 years. That's how long Hannibal Gaddafi has been sitting in a Lebanese prison cell. No trial, nothing. They accused him of hiding information about a crime that went down when he was just 2 years old or maybe 3 years old. November 6, 2025, Lebanon finally let him go. They cut his bail, lifted the travel ban. But here's what they are not telling you in the mainstream media. This freedom, that's not the real story here. This isn't about justice. This is about Libya. It's about what the West tore apart. And it's about an entire continent that is still bleeding from it, even to this day. Because in 2011, NATO rose into Libya. They are selling it as a humanitarian intervention, protecting civilians. They said, I'm saying this so that those of us here in Nigeria will understand what the intervention of America looks like. Now, but those leaked emails from Clinton's private server, they are telling a whole different story. This is about gold, about African independence, about why they systematically took apart one of Africa's richest countries. Now, Gaddafi had plans, big ones. He wanted an African currency backed by gold, the gold dinar, an African central bank, infrastructure that could cut African nations loose from Western financial systems. These weren't dreams, these were plans, and they threatened everything. Look at Libya today. It is completely destroyed. It's a failed state. Militias now run the show. Weapons from Libya arsenal. They are now fueling the terror attacks we see across the Sahel and even in Nigeria. The whole Sahel is on fire because of this intervention that happened in 2011. Now, hundreds of thousands of African migrants trapped in Libyan detention centers right now. There are a lot of African migrants that are trapped in detention all across Libya. They are being tortured. They are victims of human trafficking. This is the same country where Gaddafi once gave them jobs, gave them dignity, and gave them opportunity. So when Hannibal walked out last week from Lebanon's jail cells, the Gaddafi family is calling it vindication. Pan-Africanists are calling it justice against arbitrary detention. But Lebanese Shia communities, they are still looking for answers about their cleric who vanished back in 1978. And Libya's broken government sees a diplomatic win here, just maybe. And here is the real question. It's not whether Hannibal is going home. It's whether Libya can ever be what it was. Whether Africa gets another shot at the independence Gaddafi was building. We are going deep on this one. We are looking at how they collapsed one of Africa's most prosperous nations. We are tracking the weapons. We are asking questions nobody wants to ask. We are pulling back the curtain on how they crushed one man's vision for African unity, because certain forces need this continent divided and dependent. Let's get into it. Earlier on this November 2025, Hannibal Gaddafi is working towards freedom. But this isn't simple freedom. Not really. Because for 10 years, he had been sitting in Lebanese detention for a crime he couldn't possibly know about. He was born in 1976. Now, the cleric that they are asking about, he disappeared in 1978. He was only 2 years old when this happened. So, how could he possibly have answers to what Lebanon was looking for? December 2015 is where this whole started. Hannibal was living in exile in Syria with his Lebanese wife and their kids. He fled Libya after NATO killed his father in 2011. He is trying to build something normal, away from the politics, away from all the cameras. Then armed Lebanese militants grabbed him in Syria. They dragged him across the border. What happened next? It tells you everything about how power really works. Lebanese authorities take custody. They accuse him of withholding information about Imam Moussa al-Sadr, a Lebanese cleric who disappeared in Libya back in 1978. But here is the problem. Hannibal was just 2 years old when this happened. He couldn't know anything meaningful. But Lebanon doesn't care about logic. They have got a Gaddafi now. And hostages, they are useful in geopolitics. So years has passed, no trial, just interrogations, just detention. His health starts breaking down. 2023, he goes on hunger strike, protesting detention without trial. They hospitalize him twice. His weight drops. Prisons are documenting everything. Then in August 2025, something shifts. Human Rights Watch visit. They documented the condition they saw Hannibal Gaddafi. They call it what it is: arbitrary detention, a joke of justice, and they demand release. Suddenly, the Lebanese courts, they make their own move. October 2025, judge orders release on $11 million bail. Impossible. His lawyers, they protested this. Then on November 6th, they cut it to about $900,000. Travel ban lifted, and he's heading towards freedom. But why now? Why does Lebanon suddenly let him go after 10 years? This isn't about justice. It's about diplomacy, about pressure from Libya's government of national unity, about international human rights groups forcing action. And that deal, it opens a door to something much bigger. Now let's talk about this Imam that disappeared in Libya back in 1978, specifically on August 31st, 1978. This date changed Lebanon forever. Imam Moussa al-Sadr wasn't just some cleric. He was a leader, standing at 1.98 meters tall, charismatic, powerful. He founded the Amal movement, became the voice of Lebanon's Shia community. He was beloved, he was feared, and he mattered. Then on August 25th, 1978, al-Sadr travels to Libya on official business, meeting government officials. He was supposed to come back home. He doesn't. August 31st, after 6 days waiting in Tripoli, al-Sadr was last seen leaving his hotel in a government vehicle. Libya says he flew to Rome. Italy says he never arrived. Everyone else, they say he vanished into thin air with 2 companions. Now, the cases, they go cold. Decades passed. Lebanese Shia still waiting for answers. They want to believe he's still alive. He will be 96 today if he survived. September 2025, BBC drops a bombshell. They found evidence, a photo from a secret Tripoli morgue in 2011 during Libya's collapse, shows a body. Facial recognition suggests it could be al-Sadr. Skull damage consistent with bullet wound or blunt force. Former Libyan Justice Minister Mustafa Abdel Jalil confirmed in 2011. Documents were forged claiming al-Sadr went to Italy. The reality was he was killed in a Libyan prison, and back then Gaddafi had a final say. But al-Sadr's family rejects the BBC findings. Evidence stays contested, truth stays ambiguous, and this unresolved grief, it has been weaponized for 47 years. Then in 2015, Lebanese operatives connected to Amal and families, and then kidnapped Hannibal and his family. The message was clear. You want your Hannibal? We want our loved ones. Hostage taking dressed as justice. Hannibal Gaddafi becomes payment, collateral in a decades-old dispute over a disappearance nobody can prove. So Lebanon keeps him. Yes, no trial, no evidence linking him to anything, because his father is accused of al-Sadr's death, and Lebanon needs someone from the Gaddafi family to blame. So November 2025, something shifts. Lebanon lets him go. Libyan delegation visit Beirut. Negotiations happen. Decisions were made. But why now? What changed? The answer is in understanding what Libya became and what it could have been. Now, before 2011, Libya wasn't just a country. It was a vision. One of Africa's richest nations at the time. A model of what an African state could be with oil wealth and strategic leadership. The numbers, they tell it all. In 2011, Libya's GDP per capita hit over $12,000 according to the IMF, highest on the continent. Now, their healthcare was free for everyone. Education was also free. Housing, it was a priority. Now, a kid born in Libya in 1969 had a life expectancy of 51 years. But by 2011, that was up to 74. That's not small change. That's transformation. And that's a government investing in its own people. Now, the literacy rates also shoot up. UNESCO data from early 2000s, they had adult literacy climb over 86%. Youth literacy, nearly 100% of both genders. Now, this is education building a future. Now, the Great Man-Made River may be the greatest engineering achievement. Over 25 billion invested. Desert became farmland. Water for millions through 4,000 kilometers of underground pipelines. 6 million cubic meters daily. Libya funds the whole thing without international loans. Continental scale infrastructure. But Libya's wealth wasn't just for Libya. Gaddafi had vision for all of Africa. Libya funded about 15% of the African Union's budget. This was when other African countries couldn't pay dues. Libya paid them. Gaddafi invested billions continent-wide. Telecom infrastructure in Uganda, Zambia, Ivory Coast, Niger Republic, hospitals, schools, total African investment going up to tens of billions. Now, then came the plan that changed everything. African Monetary Union. That was African Central Bank, the proposed African Central Bank. And it is supposed to have a currency backed by gold, the gold dinar. Now picture this. African nations trading oil, gold, resources using their own currency, backed by African gold. No automatic dollar dependence, no euro, no CFA franc controlled by France. Then Hillary Clinton's email tells us what Western powers feared. Because on April 2nd, 2011, Clinton advisor writes, Gaddafi's government holds about 143 tons of gold, similar amount in silver accumulated before the rebellion, intended for Pan-African currency based on Libyan gold dinar. Now, the plan was designed to give Francophone African countries alternative to French CFA franc. The email continues, French intelligence discovered this plan after rebellion began. This influenced Sarkozy's decision to attack Libya. Even African intellectuals remember what Gaddafi represented. Sultan Kakuba from Uganda said he believed United Africa would speak with one voice at the United Nations, be equal partners with the West. And Mustafa Mehta, Joburg researcher, said Gaddafi was murdered for standing up to the West, promoting progressive African ideas. Then March 2011, NATO launches what they call humanitarian intervention. But humanitarian intervention doesn't look like what happened next. March 17, 2011, UN Security Council passes Resolution 1973. It is a no-fly zone. Measures to protect civilians, they say. NATO calls it humanitarian mission, Operation Unified Protector. But what happens on the ground? Way more extensive than civilian protection. The timeline is crucial. Mid-March 2011, Gaddafi's forces control most of Libya. Benghazi rebellion was under pressure. Conflict heading towards conclusion. NATO intervention, they changed everything. For 7 months, NATO flies about 26,500 sorties, 9,700 strike sorties, destroys over 5,900 military targets. And this isn't enforcing no-fly zones. This is active military support for rebels. Jake Sullivan, Hillary's deputy chief, leaked email, and it says, tightening noose around Gaddafi. That was the mission. According to Harvard's Belfer Center research, NATO intervention extended conflict duration 6 times, death toll 7 times compared to no intervention. African Union processes ceasefire, political transition roadmap. South African President Zuma later said, NATO and West ignored African Union's solution to Libyan crisis. Gaddafi's government even offered ceasefires multiple times. Rebels rejected it. NATO continued. On October 2011, Gaddafi was captured and killed. Libya's government collapsed. Military disbanded. Infrastructure was critically damaged. Libya's arsenal, hundreds of thousands of weapons about to flood the whole of Africa and the Sahel. Now, the destruction didn't end with Gaddafi's death. It was just the beginning of the misery Africa is currently going on right now, especially in Nigeria and in the Sahel. I'm talking about the floodgates of the weapons that opened up to all the terrorists that are terrorizing the whole of West Africa and the Sahel right now. Did you know that the Sahel conflict over the last 14 years can be traced back to weapons from Libya's destroyed arsenal? According to UN reports, Libya held between 400,000 and 1 million firearms before 2011, plus surface-to-air missiles, anti-tank weapons, heavy equipment. Libya collapses, military disbands, those weapons hit black markets across the region. They go to Mali. In 2012, 2 Tuareg fighters who served in Libya's military returned with weapons. This arsenal helps fuel the terrorist attacks that split Mali north and south. They go to Niger Republic, Chad, and Algeria, even Tunisia. The UN documents weapons trafficking across North Africa and the Sahel. A 2015 UN Security Council report says that arms from Libya significantly reinforced terrorist groups' military capacity across Africa. Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Boko Haram, others, they require weapons from Libya's collapsed stockpiles. These weapons became the stabilization instrument region-wide. This cascade is well documented. Libya weapons contribute to Mali instability, create space for extremist groups, and then the fractures we are seeing in West Africa today. Now, 2025, Sahel is still a conflict zone. Groups like JNIM conduct complex attacks with advanced weapons. They blockade towns, control territory. Security situation, they remain dire. Who benefits from this chaos? Arms dealers, private military contractors, external powers competing for resource-rich territories. What about ordinary Africans? Rarely. Nobody benefits from this kind of chaos. According to a UN report, weapons trafficking is continuing. Arms are still being flown from Libya into Mali and other Sahel countries. But Libya's destruction wasn't just geopolitical. It was personal. Hundreds of thousands of Africans paid the price with their lives, freedom, and their future. And that price, it is still being collected at sea, in detention centers, in refugee camps continent-wide. Under Muammar Gaddafi, Libya employed hundreds of thousands of African workers. They came from across the continent. I'm talking about construction, agriculture, and services. They all sent money home, built their lives there, and had opportunities, real opportunities. Today's Libya, the difference is in place. According to International Organization for Migration, between 800 to 900,000 migrants in Libya, many are trapped in dire circumstances. Reports document migrants are held for unpaid wages, abducted for forced labor, women subjected to sexual violence, mass graves discovered, systematic violence and trafficking. They are all happening in Libya as I speak to you. EU funds Libyan Coast Guard to reduce migration to Europe because between 2023 and 2024, over 16,000 migrants were intercepted and they were returned to Libya. Now, Human Rights Watch are criticizing this because they return vulnerable people to serious harm. December 2024, the HRW reports over 1,500 people dead or missing in central Mediterranean after leaving Libya. Death tolls continue to rise on a monthly basis. This state collapse has human cost. Why Hannibal walks free after 10 years? Hundreds of thousands of nameless Africans remain trapped in conditions violating fundamental dignity and human rights. The questions they remain. Will this ever change? Will Libya stabilize? Does anyone with power to make difference actually care enough to act? Now, Hannibal Gaddafi is free today, but he's not going home yet. His lawyer, Laurent Bayon, confirms he won't be returning to Libya immediately. It is too dangerous for him and too unstable. Destination undisclosed for security reasons. We have no idea where he is going to head to. But what we do know is that the Lebanese authority have set him free. He is free to go anywhere he wants. But where could he possibly go? His brother is reportedly living in Turkey after the 2021 release. His mother was living between Egypt and Oman. His sister Aisha and brother Mohammed are in Oman. Gaddafi family scattered globally, exiled, waiting for a Libya that may never return. His brother Sadi is celebrating Hannibal's release from Turkey. He calls it victory. Thanks Libya's government of national unity. But gratitude doesn't change reality. Today's Libya isn't unified. Government of national unity controls Tripoli and West. Haftar's Libyan National Army controls East. They are rivals. Oil production controlled by competing militias. GDP contracted dramatically in 2011, never fully recovered. Turkey backs Western government. Russia backs Haftar through Wagner Group. US and Europe maintain relationships with the government of national unity. Libya is not functioning normally. It is divided with competing power centers. In September 2025, Libya's Presidential Council tells the UN, Libyan territorial integrity is non-negotiable, but can they enforce it, unify the country, rebuild what is destroyed? The answer remains uncertain. Yet, Hannibal's release reveals something. Sustained diplomatic pressure still achieves results. Libya's government of national unity sent delegation to Lebanon. They negotiated, they pushed, and they succeeded after a decade. Gaddafi's vision remains unrealized. No African monetary union, no gold dinner, no African central bank. Without Libya's contributions, AU faces budget challenges. Vision of African economic independence remains a dream. Hannibal is walking free today, but Africa lives with Libya's collapse consequences. A collapse following intervention authorized for civilian protection, but became something more dangerous, something about power, about maintaining existing systems, about preventing changes that could have shifted African relationships with global financial structures. Now, the question is, will new generation learn from this history? Will African states work together protecting sovereignty and citizens? Will the continent find new paths towards unity and independence leaders like Gaddafi envisioned? Will African states work together protecting sovereignty and citizens? Will continent find new paths towards unity and the independence leaders like Gaddafi envisioned, even if his methods were authoritarian and controversial? Now, that story is not finished. It is still being written by governments, by civil society, by ordinary Africans demanding better life, by you and by this platform, Frontline Africa, because this is what we dream about, a unified, strong Africa. And thank you for watching to this point. This is Frontline Africa, where we talk about geopolitics from Africa's own point of view. Now, why am I talking about this story today? Because something similar is about to happen in Nigeria. I need Nigerians to understand this. Western intervention never, ever ends up better for the people of the country concerned. It doesn't end well for the citizens of any country that experiences Western intervention. This is Libya I am talking about. The same can be said of Afghanistan. The same can be said of Iraq. The same can be said of Syria. As I speak to you now, terrorists are running Syria. The country Syria, terrorists are running it after the Western intervention happened. So, will Nigeria allow themselves to be balkanized and destroyed like they did to Libya? Now, the question is, what is our government going to do about it? The only thing they can do about it that can realistically stop this from happening is to forget about politics and crush terrorism, whether it is in the north or in the east or in the west. Every terrorist organization that is operating freely in Nigeria should be crushed. That is the only way we can avoid this Donald Trump coming to save Christians in Nigeria. And this is the message I have today. If you want to continue to see my content, maybe consider to subscribe and turn on those notifications. I am still your host, Ezekiel Enejeta, and I will see you in the next one. It's a bye-bye for now.